Welcome to the Apple a Day podcast. My name is Michelle Apples. If you don't know me, I am the founder of the Christian Singles Hub, a space where Christian singles can be equipped with the resources they need to grow towards greatness, put their faith in action, and to date with purpose. Healthy relationships only come from healthy individuals. So join me every Wednesday as we interview some incredible guests and give you all the wisdom you need to steward your singleness better. We hope you enjoy the show, and don't forget to check out our website at thechristiansingleshub.com. Welcome to another episode of an Apple a Day podcast. My name is Michelle Apples, and I'm your host of this podcast. And we come to with a new episode every single Wednesday. So make sure you tune in or check back at our previous episodes so that you can find out all of the things that we've covered, all the topics we've covered, all the things that we've talked about in the past. So glad you're here. Welcome. Currently, if you don't know who I am, first and foremost, I'm the founder of the Christian Singles Hub, which is a community of people that is a business I created in 2020, really to create more spaces for Christian singles. Most of the time, what I've found and what I've heard from other singles is that after the age of 26, 25, 26 in the church, single adults don't really feel like they have a place. There's so many spaces for young adults, and there's so many places for kids or for married people, or you can small groups, volunteers. That's great. But where do single Christians meet other single Christians? And so I set out on this journey. Well, God told me to set out on this journey to create more spaces, to create creative solutions for social problems. That's one word I was given back in the day, and so here we are. So my husband and I actually recently got married about 6.5 months ago. My husband and I are on a full USA tour, hosting gatherings and community functions in order for people to gather. Now, we've done this podcast for the last couple of years, and it's been such a blessing to so many people. So I've heard. And there's been a lot of times I've wanted to quit because it's a lot to host a podcast every week and be consistent with it. Last year, I definitely dropped the ball and went MIA for a few months while I had a lot going on in my life, and life gets busy, life gets overwhelming. And so today I actually want to talk about how to prevent burnout, or if you are noticing patterns that are leading to burnout, how do we stop and take inventory and stop burnout before it happens? So this could be in career, this could be in dating, this could be in any area of your life that you're feeling stressed, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling like there's so much to do and you'll never get it accomplished. And I want to say I'm an expert at this, but I'm not an expert, because I'm not an expert of saying no and slowing down. And that's something that I've had to learn myself, is to create healthy boundaries. Saying no, which is always hard, to having confrontational conversations is never easy. And so just had to, for my own sanity. So this is something that God has been working on me over the last couple of years of running a business that has grown very quickly. More quicker than the average business. We have tens of thousands of people all across the world now that tune in to everything that we're doing, whether it's a podcast, whether it's an event, whether it's a retreat, whether it's something else that we have going on. And so it's easy when you're a small team to get burnt out. And so I'm coming from firsthand experience. Actually, this week was probably one of more challenging weeks for me. We've been on this US tour now since January 1st. Well, just before January 1st, but my husband and I haven't stopped traveling basically since October. And we only got married in September. So we haven't stopped. We haven't been in like one place for more than a couple weeks at a time since we got married 6.5 months ago. And so that's always challenging, but also such a gift. We talk about quite often just the gift that it is that God has given us, just the opportunity, the flexibility, and the freedom to be so mobile. And we're really just here because He spoke it into existence. And so, yeah, I want to talk a little bit about burnout and how to prevent it based on my own current situation and circumstance that I'm currently dealing with. So my husband and I set out on January 1st. God has called us to do a US tour. Now, He didn't say go here, here, and here. He simply spoke that we'd be going to different regions throughout the United States to host gatherings for people. Okay, God, you know I'll do it. So everything worked out and we set forth a plan, and we always surrendered our plan. Like if you look right on the website, it said these plans may change depending on what God says, depending on where He takes us, where He leads us. And so I'll be the first to tell you that if God tells me to do something, I'm going to go do it regardless of how you all feel about it. That's simply because I care more of, I live for an audience of one, and I'm going to be judged by Him and Him alone. And so if He says to do something or not do something, I'm going to obey that, because actually more so because I'm so afraid of not obeying Him and missing out on so much that He wants to do in and through my life, not just for me, but also for the other people, for people that need those spaces, for people that need to hear what we have to say, for people who need to meet Jesus, and will do so by the fruits that my husband and I bear in our lives. And so this week we made some hard decisions. The beginning of this week was really challenging. I hit a wall. We've been going since January 1st, like I said, and we've been nonstop. I don't think we had a weekend off. We've been hosting events, we've been hosting retreats, also running a full-time business. Also, he's working a full-time business. Also, we're on the road for the first time ever in our lives, and there's things and issues and things like just last night we had an issue with our sewer and had to figure that out at 10 o'clock at night. Like there's things that have constantly come up because this is a new territory of living in an RV, and having to figure that out. It's been a huge learning lesson. And I've said that from day one, is we've just both learned so much. We've grown so much. Our relationship has grown so much. It's developed in new ways that are deeper, which is really beautiful. But first and foremost, we need to take care of us, and we need to take care of our relationship with the Lord first and foremost before we even take care of us, because we can't take care of us if that's not right. And then from the overflow of that, take care of the people He's calling us to take care of. So at the beginning of this week, I hit a wall, completely burnt out. Monday, I didn't even want to get out of bed. I was like, this is hard. I don't want to do this anymore. I am burnt out. We had an event on Tuesday night, and even on Tuesday, I was like, I feel like I have about 10% of energy to give, and I never want to host an event or a retreat or anything that God has asked me to do from 10. Because if God's asked you to do something, you shouldn't be operating at 10%. You're trying to control something if you're operating at 10%. And so my husband and I had some really hard discussions just about this US tour, what it looks like moving forward, and how do we best serve each other, serve ourselves, and serve our relationship with the Lord as well. And so we came to some hard situations where we decided to revamp the US tour, which we're on right now. We're currently in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're going to be hitting Colorado this next week, and we're going to be staying there for a month, just to recharge a bit. We are hosting 2 events there, but it will be more of a recharge month in order to continue this tour really well. And then also we have taken out some cities moving forward in the tour. March, I think, had 8 or 9 stops in and of itself, which means some days we were moving every second day, some days we were moving every third day, and it's just too much. It's too much when you're working full time, when you are running a business, when you're, newly married, when you're learning so much about the RV. I'm also seeing a functional health coach, which is taking up a lot of time and energy, and a business coach in order to make sure that, as we're seeing this so much growth this year with the business, that we're putting strategies and systems in place in order to be able to handle the growth that's coming. And so, yeah, we sat down, we revamped the whole tour schedule in order to hit the retreats on time, making sure we're still in those locations since we've already booked retreat centers, but also making sure that we're not just on autopilot doing the things that God called us to. I mean, He's called us human beings, not human doings. And I think I want to show up and be present at events and be able to be not just doing things for the Lord, but not really being present with the Lord. And so that was first and foremost so important to me. And so, yeah, we decided to revamp the whole tour. But some of the things that we had to kind of talk about this week and just kind of figure out is first and foremost, our relationship with the Lord. When you're so busy doing things for the Lord, you can spend less time with the Lord. And I've definitely noticed that in my own life. I mean, there's been a lot of transitions, and of course, there's grace in it all. I went from single to married. I went from, I'm still in an ongoing immigration, a season, which I've been dealing with for over 2 years now, or about 2 years now. I have been, yeah, just doing a lot of things for the Lord, and my time has changed. I mean, when you go from single to married, the amount of time you have literally gets cut in half. So, I think of back in the pandemic when I used to literally spend 2 hours a day in my Bible first thing when I woke up, because it was just so amazing, and it just felt so lovely, and it was just I had nowhere to be and nowhere to go. And so that was my foundation, was I was able to spend so much time. But that's not realistic to wake up and spend 2 hours with the Lord in this season. And so there is grace from when go from single to being married, but obviously that relationship needs to still be number one in your life. And so making sure that we're focused on that, because first and foremost, that is number one. And so if you are feeling like you're burnt out, maybe it's in relationships, maybe it's in your dating life right now. I hear this so often with Christian singles, that people are feeling burnt out. I'm feeling burnt out by dating. I'm feeling burnt out of the dating apps. I'm feeling burnt out of my job. I'm feeling burnt out because I'm juggling 6 different things. Well, first and foremost, spend time with the Lord. In His word, Matthew 11:28-30, it says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Well, the only way that you're going to come to Him is if you actually come to Him. And so that's one thing. My husband and I, we spend time with the Lord every day. We pray with Him, but it looks different in this season. And it was definitely looking different, knowing every 2 days we had to make another drive, and then we had to park, and then we had to unhook, and then we had to figure all that out, and then we had to plug into our computers, and we had to work, and we had to do this and that, and it just becomes a lot. And so we need to make sure that number one, are we spending time with the Lord? Are we spending an adequate time with the Lord? Are we actually being with the Lord? Or are we actually just marking it off on our list of oh, I've done that devotional today. I love and hate Bible through 1 year Bible plans, because a lot of times it can be oh, I got to check that little mark off, rather than I actually just need to be with the Lord. And so I think it's so important to just be with the Lord, whether that's reading your Bible. Of course, read your Bible. You'll get so much wisdom from it, but also just soaking in his presence, just getting in his presence, talking to him and letting him talk to you. I read my Bible often, I pray often, but I don't remember the last time I just sat with the Lord and asked him, just reveal to me whatever you want to reveal to me. And I used to do this all the time in the past seasons, but now because we're running so hard, it's like I don't want it to just become like, oh, check the item. I read my Bible today. Check, we're good. I want to be present with the Lord. I want to hear what he's saying. I want to take inventory of what he's saying to me and make sure that that is number one in my life because it's so important. Guys, it's so, so, so crucial is spending time with the Lord because your life, the overflow of your life will be so evident by spending time with him. I remember like the season of spending so much time with him during COVID when I was locked in my apartment and the wisdom I had after that season shocked me because it wasn't wisdom that I had, it was wisdom he gave to me. And I would be saying things or using words that I was like, I don't even know if I know the definition of this word, but it's coming out of my mouth. Like, I don't know. And that's like the fruit of spending time in the word, spending time with the Lord. And we want to make sure we can do that. And we want to make sure that we have that time to not just, I don't want to end this journey being like, I don't know what happened because I was on autopilot and a zombie the whole time, just doing instead of actually being. I want to reflect. I want to remember those moments. Like the other day, we went and volunteered in Houston. And it was so beautiful. One of the girls, she was like, I needed to hear what you had to say. I have actually I had this business that God has told me to start, and I've been walking in fear and not doing it. And I needed that faith encouragement from you in order to step into that. And those are the things I want to remember is like the work that the Lord has done in and through this tour, not just, okay, we hit every state and now we have it off our bucket list. No, we can go back to states, God willing. And so we needed to make sure that first and foremost, we're spending time with the Lord. Now, if you're feeling burnt out, whether it's dating apps, relationships, career, put that as number one. Spend time with the Lord. I guarantee you, you will feel different when you walk out than when you walked in. The next is prioritize self-care. It's so important. And people may think it's selfish to, prioritize self-care, but the Bible says in Mark 12:30-31, that you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your mind and with all of your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And this is where people miss that. They miss that you need to actually love yourself before you can love your neighbor. So in order to go out and love on people on this tour, create spaces, show up, we need to love on ourselves. This is a huge reason I hired a functional health coach is because I wasn't feeling good. I was dealing with some health issues. I was just feeling down and I was like, I need to do something about this. I need to step out and actually love on myself enough to do something about this in order then I can love on other people. But if I feel like crap about myself or I feel bad about whatever that is, I need to do good for me because if I can do good for me, then I can do good for others. But if I am sitting here and I'm not well, if I'm just feeling sluggish and all the foods that I'm eating are just not good for me, a big part of my journey and why I hired a functional health coach is the food quality in the US since I arrived is so different than in Canada. It's night and day different. And so my body doesn't feel good. Simple as that. And I was like, I need to fix this because I cannot keep pouring out to other people unless I am pouring into myself. And so, a big thing this year, going to this year, I need to take care of my health, my wellness, my well-being, because I can't take care of other people if I'm not feeling good. And so, I'm making that a priority right now. Going to Colorado and staying there for a month. Right now, we're on the road and we're moving so quickly, and it's so hard to follow the things that this functional health doctor is telling me to do when we're moving all the time. And so, we just made a conscious decision. Hey, we need to focus on ourselves right now. We need to focus on making sure we're good in order to, pour out into each other, into other people. And, our marriage, we're now one. We are one under the covenant of God. And so we need to make sure each other is good as well and our relationship's good so that we can pour out to other people. So that's number two. If you are feeling burnt out from dating, you can't go on dating apps and love on other people if you don't love yourself. It's simple as that. It's literally in the Bible. And so you can't work hard and do all you can do for the kingdom of God if you're not loving on yourself. It's everything stems from that. And so prioritizing self-care, making sure that you're making you a priority. It's so important because when we feel good, we can operate in that feel good for other people, and for the things that God has called us to. Our bodies are vessels used for God's glory, and I want to make sure that mine is actually being used for God's glory well, and that I can handle all that God is sending me to, and doing. So that's number two. Number three, shifting your perspective. This is a big one. I think, I recognize that it's so easy when you're in those feelings of burnt out to just constantly be telling yourself, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so anxious, I'm so stressed, I'm so this, I'm so that. But that just makes it worse. That is just makes it worse. It's because you're subconsciously putting all these thoughts into your head. And so we need to watch our words. The Bible is so clear on being careful what we are speaking. um or like, I love Romans 12:2. It says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So we need to constantly conform our patterns to of this world and transform our minds, because it's so important that our minds are constantly like, no, Christ is my strength. I need to do my part. Like I said on last week's episode, I have a part to play, but I need to make sure that I am first and foremost knowing I have the mind of Christ. I have power, I have strength, I have ability, I have worth. But that's why it's important to take care of myself, is because am I am used for God's glory. And so if I'm going to be used for God's glory, I need to actually be well enough to do that. And that starts with our taking care of ourselves physically, and then taking care of our minds, making sure we're thinking good things, think good thoughts, but also, renewing our mind, making sure we're not just telling ourselves, oh man, this season is so hard, it'll never get over. This past week has been so hard. This functional health coach I'm seeing, she literally put me on such a strict eating plan for 6 weeks in order to get my hormones is situated, in order to fight off any infections that might be going on, in order to help the chronic pain that's happening in my body right now. And so it was hard the first couple of days, and I kept telling myself, this is so hard. I'm like, I can't keep telling myself this is hard, because it's only going to feel 100 times harder if I keep telling myself this is so hard. I'm like, okay, we have to do what we can do, but also just be be mindful of like what we're telling ourselves every day, because we had a good discussion on Table this week. So if you didn't know, I host a radio show called Table Talks on the Salt dating app once a week, and we had such a great discussion this past week, and one of the comments that came up was someone was saying there's just no good guys out there, no good godly men. And I'm like, stop telling yourself that. There are so many good godly men out there. But it's so true that like that's there is like a reason you'll get burnt out if you're constantly telling yourself, if you're a female and you're constantly telling yourself, there's no good godly men out there, of course you're going to get burnt out. That's what you think your reality is. And so we have to be careful the thoughts that we are putting out there, the thoughts that we're sharing with even ourselves. Or if you're a guy listening and you're saying like, oh, I just haven't met any women that are, super on fire for God. It's like, well, no. Or I hear this one a lot. I just haven't met women that just want to be homemakers. I'm like, I know a lot of women who would love to be homemakers. Like, you can't I can't put this label on so many people because let's be real, when you get married, you only need one. You only marry one. You don't need all of them. You just need one. And if you trusted God, those comments just make me go, "Oh, you don't trust God." Because God is so much bigger than your circumstance. I mean, his mind is higher than ours. His ways are higher than ours. His thoughts are higher than ours. His capacity is larger than ours. He can do anything. He created everything in this world. Like he created the stars. He created creation. Don't tell me that he can't bring you someone amazing into your life. Like that is such low thinking. And so we have to not conform our to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of our minds. Number four, if you're feeling burnt out, one more thing that I have for you to do, seek out connections. Now, I do not mean go seek a guy to fulfill a void that you're feeling awful, so you want attention, or go seek a woman who flaunts everything to you because she's giving you attention that's unhealthy. That's not what I'm saying, because that is a bad pattern of behavior that a lot of people do. I came from a toxic childhood where I had a lot of father wounds and I chased a lot of the wrong people for a long time in my life because, well, if I hung out with just anyone, it fulfilled a void. Or, if a man could love me, then I could prove that was possible. And it's not worth it. But when I say seek out connections, get in godly community. Get around people who will edify you, who will build you up, who will encourage you, who will speak faith into you, who will speak life into you, who will pray for you, who will get on the call. If you would send them a message, no matter how long it's been since you've talked, and say, hey, I really need to get on a prayer call, they'll pick up the phone and they'll pray with you. That is so, so important. Those people refresh your soul. It's so important to not forsake the fellowship. And Hebrews 10:25 says, do not give up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. This is the key, is being in community that encourages you, community that speaks life into you, community that pours out to you. And, it's so, so so important to find those people. And if you don't have those people, start praying for those people. The amount of times that I prayed for the right people to come in my life, and I have amazing people I could call anytime, people I haven't seen for years. And I know if I reached out and said, I'm really struggling, they'd say, well, hey, let's get on a call. That's the beauty of community. It doesn't have to be people that you're, right beside all the time. It could be people that may have been in a past season. I've moved a lot. Being on the road a lot is so lonely. You don't get around people as often, which that's probably one of the hardest parts for me about being on this US tour is like, I don't get around those people that encourage me and edify me and fuel me and bless me. um but I have those people that if in a heartbeat I said, hey, I'm struggling and I need prayer, they would pick up the phone and they would call me immediately. And so I pray that for you as well. And so all of these things can apply, whether it's you're burnt out with dating, If you're burnt out with dating, spend time with the Lord, prioritize self-care, shift your perspective, seek out connections that aren't dating related. Get around like-minded people. It's so important because this is the thing. If you keep doing what you're doing and you're feeling burnt out, you're feeling overwhelmed, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. But if you take a step back and you take inventory of your situation, you make changes. That's another one too. So I guess I have five. Five, look at your reality and then make changes. Honestly, you are worth more than being overwhelmed every day. You are worth you are worth more than the burden that you're carrying. And sometimes I get it. You can't take off more off your plate. If you're a single mom, I get it. I don't get it because I don't have kids, but I have two single moms who are my sisters who I've seen them work multiple jobs to provide for their kids, and I watch them in seasons where they struggle, and I'm sure that they had overwhelmed so many times. But take a look at what is currently on your plate. I think a lot of times this can actually happen in ministry and in churches. People get burnt out from church, and so then they stop going. And I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is taking a step back and then seeking the Lord, spending time with the Lord. Number one, making sure, are you where God has called you to go? I know that God has called me on this tour, 100% hands down. Now, he did not say specifically, you have to go to every single state. That was on me. And I can admit that. I can look at that and say, okay, God told me to go on this tour. And so I made a itinerary, but then I surrendered it to him. And I said, God, this is the itinerary that I made in my human strength. Now, if there's places I am not supposed to go, or there's places that I am supposed to go, either remove them or add them. Because at the end of the day, I want to be doing what you're calling me to do. Now, this past week, we recognize it's not realistic to go to all the places that we're currently going to. So instead, we narrowed it down to 4, maybe 5 places a month because we need to be in a place for at least a week. We're going to places right now. We're not even seeing the places we're in. We're just hosting one-off event and then going. And it's like, no, no, no. We want to make sure that we're being present in the places that we are. So take a look at your situation. Where can you change things? For example, I could have not seen the functional health coach right now and the business coach and been on the US tour and this and that. But I also knew, well, business is booming right now. It's very busy. It's been busy since the beginning of this year. I feel like this was the year that God's like, okay, green light, go. Which is crazy because the last 2 years I've been in immigration season, so I've had a lot of limitations in what I could do. And so I felt like the last 2 years have been just waiting, 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 not having a lot to do. And so not only now am I in a new season, I'm a newlywed, but God's saying, okay, it's go time with the business. Okay, great. But now I have to look at, okay, in order to sustain, I'm not here just for a year, unless God says you're only here for a year. I'm not here for 5 years unless God says you're only here for 5 years. I'm here for the longevity, and I need to make sure, A, I'm good. So how am I good? I'm making sure I'm spending time with the Lord. First and foremost, that is number one. Next is that physically I'm healthy, I'm well-being. I'm sure many of you have felt this, when you get sick, it affects everything. It affects your business, it affects your career, it affects your relationships, it affects your mental health. I've experienced that more than ever when I get sick. Is like by day 3, I'm like not feeling myself. I have to constantly fight the battle, that mental health battle of like, I'm gonna combat the lies that are coming up that I've had stewing because I have idle hands right now and I'm not doing anything because I'm laying in bed because I'm sick. My health and my well-being is number 2 after my spiritual life. So I need to make sure that's good. So yeah, I could have continued this tour and said, well, next year I'll see a functional health coach, or next year I'll get these problems figured out. No, no, no. In order to sustain what God has called me to do this year, I need to go and take care of number 2, which is my physical well-being, health. And so making sure that's a priority. Okay, seeing a lot of growth in business. Okay, this business coach, he's actually going to allow me to put strategies and systems in place to handle what we're seeing coming in. Instead, before we get so overwhelmed or past the point of like, now I just want to quit because I can't do this on my own. And so making sure we are in fact putting things in motion to be able to sustain that longevity. We're here. We're not just here for today. We're not just here till for tomorrow unless God tells us to. Um, yeah, I think number six. I mean, I was only going for four, but number six, um, I think I've realized since moving to the US the importance of eating well, um, and drinking enough water and making sure you're moving your body. The past 2 years, like a lot of you know, I've been dealing with a lot of chronic pain in my back that they tell me is uncurable, but I know my God, and so they're lying, and that's fine. Well, they're telling me their version of the truth, but my version of the truth is God is my healer, and I know He will fully heal me, but I have a part to play. So, I think I've recognized the importance. I mean, over the last 2 years, I will be honest saying that I haven't ate as well as I probably should have. I've been going through a lot with this immigration process. I've been going through so much, yeah, just moving to a new country and a lot of frustrating moments. And I probably have, and then I moved to the South where everything is deep fried, Nashville hot chicken. And so, and then when you get into community that is also used to that lifestyle, used to, eating out a lot and just eating things that aren't necessarily good for you, it's so easy to adopt those habits. Because I used to be way healthier than I have been. But when I lived in Canada and I enjoyed that because yeah, it didn't mean that I didn't ever go out to eat, but I honestly was way healthier than I am right now. But I also blamed a lot of it of like haven't been able to be physically active because of my chronic pain. Um, but I do have a choice. I do have a choice to nourish my body well. I have a choice to drink enough water, to get sleep, to make sure I'm moving my body. I mean, that is huge to help with burnout, with helping your mind, with helping. There's so many, even scientific, research done on how effective this is for things like mental health, for burnout, for things like that. And so, yeah, I just want to encourage you to start looking at your habits. Look at and that doesn't mean adding more things on your plate when you're already feeling burnt out, but it's like, okay, maybe I need to take some stuff away so then I be get back to number B, which is prioritizing self-care. Self-care means that I'm fueling my body in a way that cares for it. I'm nourishing my body in a way that I'm caring for it. A self-care isn't just, okay, I'm gonna go do a face mask and call it a day. It's like, no, no, no. Self-care is really nourishing your body from the inside out. And so making sure that you are doing things that actually help. It's so easy, especially when you're burnt out and overwhelmed, to go and be super convenient, go and grab fast food or fried food or whatever because it's convenient and you're already burnt out, you don't feel like doing anything. But trust me, you will feel 1,000 times better if you offer healthier options. I've seen it in my own life. I mean, just over the past 2 years, how sluggish I felt, how bad about myself I felt, how just all over the place I felt. Where, you know, yeah, I just see the importance of it. That's all I'm gonna say. I could go on forever, but I see the importance of living holistically, a healthy lifestyle, that really helps you care for yourself well. And so yeah, I think making sure that you do all these things, spending time with the Lord, prioritizing self-care, shifting your perspective, seeking out connections, making sure you have good habits, and you're reevaluating where you're currently at and can I take anything off my plate. Actually, another one came up for me, so we're gonna keep going. Next one, having healthy boundaries. Oh, this is a hard word for me because I didn't have healthy boundaries for a long time, and I still probably don't have the healthiest of boundaries. Because I just want to talk to everyone and I want to do everything, and I'm very bad at saying no because I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy being somebody's prayer partner or confidant or getting on prayer calls, all the things. But when you're running a ministry of thousands of people, you can't get on the phone with everyone. You just can't. You do not have the capacity for it. That's why we have volunteer team. That's why we have teams of people that take care of people as well. And so making sure that you know your boundaries and you're able to say no. I think a big reason that we can get overwhelmed is because we want to do everything right now. We live in a day and time of instant gratification. We want things and we want them now rather than, if you look in the Bible, when God has called you to things, He usually has taken some time. Even when God called us to this tour, I mean, He called us to this tour back in April. I mean, we didn't even get on this tour until January. We didn't just pick up and say, okay, we're going tomorrow. Like sometimes it's a matter of like, okay, I'm going to wait on the Lord for that. I'm going to wait on the Lord for that. And that's okay. So I think making sure you have those boundaries of like not just doing things to do things, not just putting things on your plate to put things on your plate, not just, I think going back to like a lot of people are feeling church hurt and a lot of people are feeling burnt out from church and ministry and stuff. But it's like, seek the Lord, ask Him what He's called you to. But then if He's only called you to serve one Sunday a month, only serve one Sunday a month. Don't try to be superhero that I'm going to serve 8 times a month because you're going to get burnt out. And then what's going to happen? You're not going to have longevity there. I guarantee you, if you go to the person that's leading that team, they'll say to you, I'm so glad you told me so that I can have you on this team for longer, not just a quick couple months and then you're out because you're so burnt out and frustrated that nobody recognized that you've done all this work. It's like, well, no, if God hasn't called you to do that, then don't do it. Or if God calls you to lead a small group, that's amazing. Do it. I led many small groups and they were a blast. I had the best time. But don't lead 5 small groups and God is only calling you to lead one. I think it's so easy to get burnt out. Or if you feel like God is calling you to a specific team at church, serving at church, don't start, and other people are coming to you and saying, hey, Michelle, can you volunteer at this? Hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do this? And now you're getting asked on all these things on all these different sides. It's like, well, no, God has only called me to this. So if I'm already feeling overwhelmed, I don't need to take 6 more things on my plate. Maybe, if I'm not feeling overwhelmed, I'll say yes to one of those things, but I don't have capacity to say yes to every single thing that someone is asking me to do. And so making sure that, again, it goes back to spending time with the Lord so you know where He's calling you to, and then prioritizing self-care. And then renewing your mind too, because it says, then after you renew your mind, then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. We want to be able to test and approve what God's will is. We want to know what His will is. Okay, God, am I supposed to go here? Am I supposed to go here? We want to know those things. And so I think it's important that we look at those and we have those strong boundaries and able to say no if we know God isn't calling us to it. Like, at the end of the day, unless there's peace and God is saying, because just because He hasn't called you to something doesn't mean, when we first started this tour, we got asked to speak to a youth group. I don't speak to youth groups. Okay. Do you want me to come to your church and speak to a youth group? I felt great about that. I felt at peace about it. I definitely wasn't in this season I'm in now where I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. Well, this past week, not now because we made changes, but and I felt great about that. But if someone was like, "Hey, Michelle, can you actually like stop the tour and come work for me full time?" No, God hasn't called me to that. So why would I do that? Unless, again, it was God shifting me, and then I need to know that then I need to be able to test and approve what God's will is. Right? And so I think it's important that we do all of these things, making sure that we're be showing up to be consistent to all of these things in order to prevent that burnout, and alleviate that burnout if you're already feeling that. I know for me, my burnout only lasted 2 days. Why? Because I did all these things, because I made sure I got in the word, like literally grab my Bible, grab my journal, and I talked to the Lord about it. Next up, I prioritized self-care. Monday, I didn't come to work. I literally didn't do much on Monday because I was feeling it. I just needed to take a day. I needed to rest. I didn't need to be at my computer writing emails or messaging people back or whatever. I'm like, if I don't get back to them within 48 hours, so be it. At the end of the day, I need to take care of me. So in order to take care of other people, because if I was responding to people in that day, it probably wouldn't have been my best self. So why should I do that? I shouldn't do that. Shifting my perspective. Like I said, we started this functional health journey, and then, I got hit with overwhelm right after, and I just kept telling myself, it's so hard. This is so hard. Why is this tour so hard? Why is this feels like a lot. But it's like, it's not just the tour either. We're dealing with a lot of different things coming at us in different ways, and it's just like, well, no, I can't constantly be thinking that, because if I think that, it's not gonna ever change. It's just gonna keep being hard. It's like, okay, yes, this season has been hard because we feel like there's a lot of moving parts, and we're learning a lot, we're growing a lot. Okay, let's reevaluate. Let's sit down and reevaluate so we don't feel this is hard, so we actually enjoy this. And now I'm like, great. I'm on a healthy eating plan that's different than what I'm used to. Okay, it's taken us a little bit to navigate it, but we're learning as we're going. Instead of saying, oh, this is so hard. Oh, this sucks. I'm like, no, I'm learning, and learning is great. And so, and then seeking out connections, having very vulnerable conversations with my husband this week and saying, I can't continue. He got hit with real bad allergies. I was hit with the burnout, and it was not pretty. And it was like, okay, we got to change some things. We got to take care of us. We got to take care of not only our relationship with God, but us and each other and our marriage as well. And then we can overflow to the people. And so, having those connections, those conversations, that those moments of vulnerability as well, was so crucial to this. Like I said, eating well, having boundaries. I've said no a lot this week. I've had hard conversations in the past couple of weeks, and having to let go of people, because they're simply just not showing up, and it's adding more stress and overwhelm to my life. And I can't have that, because at the end of the day, God has called me to a place, and I want to lead with integrity. And so that's important for me. So having strong boundaries, being able to say no. People ask, hey, Michelle, can you do this? No, sorry, I just don't have capacity right now. I don't. I do not have capacity for this right now. And if it's not something God's called me to, then I'm not going to do it right this second. I may do it in the future when I don't feel like I have so much on my plate. But learning those strong boundaries and ability to say no, and then evaluating your current situation. Is there anything I can take off my plate? That right now, for us, it was revamping the tour schedule so we didn't feel so overwhelmed. And so I hope that this podcast encourages you. I really hope that if you are in a season of burnout, that you just take these things and just start applying them one by one, and just watching how God will transform your situation. Because like I said, I was only in a period of burnout for about 2 days, not even. It was probably about a day and a half. We reevaluated. We did all the things that I'm telling you right now. And then we made some hard decisions, and not everyone is pleased. I mean, I'm getting emails left, right, and center right now. Why'd you take this town out of the tour? Or, yeah, your last event looked fine, but I guess you're resting, so you're not coming to where I'm at. Like, you can't please everyone. You can't be pleasers. I am living for an audience of one. Simple as that. And so I'm doing what God calls me to do, and that's the answer to everything. It's like, where is God calling me to do? And God certainly does not want any of you burnt out, and He doesn't want me burnt out either. And so, I hope this podcast encourages you. I hope it helps you. I hope that you take a time to just process and to reflect and pray. I always encourage you, if you ever listen to any of my other episodes and you're unsure about something, pray about it. Pray about it. Because let's be real, I'm a flawed human being, that I just believe God has given me a voice and given me some wisdom. So I'm sharing that. That may not apply to everyone. So take time to reflect, process, and pray through all of these things. And I truly believe that you will yeah, just be able to see some fruit from that, from those decisions, and making sure that the right things are in the right order. So I thank you so much for watching this episode. We'll see you guys back next week on another episode of An Apple a Day. Have a good day. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of An Apple a Day. If you liked today's episode, why don't you go like it, share it, subscribe, maybe even send it to a friend, and don't forget to review us. It helps so much. We look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place on An Apple a Day podcast.